Jimmy Kimmel pulled off the air, free speech under attack. Trump rolls into the UK, protests everywhere. Ukraine strikes Russia's oil refineries. War economy hit hard. All this and more coming up next. Freedom of speech in the US just hit a bump. One of the country's biggest late-night shows, Jimmy Kimmel Live, has been pulled off the air. Disney-owned ABC suspended the program after a storm broke out over Kimmel's comments about the conservative activist Charlie Kirk and the MAGA movement. For the context, Jimmy Kimmel Live has been running since 2003. Classic late-night format, monologue on the news, celebrity interviews, sketches, live music. You know the drill. But this time, during his monologue, Kimmel went after MAGA supporters. He accused them of trying to politicize Kirk's killing. And that was enough to spark outrage and get the show suspended indefinitely.
The MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
The big question now, is this about protecting sensitivities, or is free speech in America really under threat? Kimmel's words set off a firestorm in conservative media, with Trump-friendly commentators piling on their criticism. And here's where it gets even more political. Right after a Trump administration official, the guy in charge of licensing ABC local stations, publicly called for Kimmel to be punished, the show was suddenly suspended. Major media groups like Nexstar and Sinclair, which own a lot of ABC affiliates, quickly announced they were pulling the show. That move flew suspicious. They might be trying to cozy up to the White House. And President Trump himself, speaking during the visit to the UK, openly welcomed the decision.
Great news for America. The ratings-challenged Jimmy Kimmel Show is canceled. Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done. Kimmel has zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert, if that's possible. That leaves Jimmy and Seth, two total losers, on fake news NBC. Their ratings are also horrible. Do it, NBC!
The backlash didn't stop there. Politicians, media figures, and free speech group all sounded the alarm, warning that critics of Donald Trump are being systematically silenced. California Governor Gavin Newsom blasted the suspension, calling the wave of firings and cancelled shows coordinated and dangerous. In his words, Republicans don't believe in free speech. They censoring you in real time. And Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer went further, saying everyone across the political spectrum needs to speak out to stop what's happening to Jimmy Kimmel. Trump's royal visit, Windsor billion-dollar deal, and massive protests. The US president just wrapped up a historical state visit to the UK, and it was nothing short of spectacular. UK media are calling it the most lavish state welcome ever. At Windsor Castle, Donald Trump praised the priceless and internal lines between the US and the UK. He said it was a tremendous honor to be the first American president and the first elected politician ever invited for two states' visit to Britain.
Singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. And if you think about it, it's a lot of presidents, and this was the second state visit, and that's the first, and maybe that's going to be the last time. I hope it is, actually. But this is truly one of the highest honors of my life. Such respect for you and such respect for your country.
King Charles III thanked Trump for his personal commitment to ending conflicts around the world.
Our countries have the closest defense, security, and intelligence relationship ever known. In 2 world wars, we fought together to defeat the forces of tyranny. Today, as tyranny once again threatens Europe, we and our allies stand together in support of Ukraine, to deter aggression and secure peace.
The military parade was historic. A 1,300-strong honor guard from the UK's Army, Navy and Air Force, plus a flyover by US F-35s and the Red Arrows. But while Windsor Castle dazzled inside, thousands protested outside. Some projected huge images of Donald Trump alongside convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein onto the castle walls, leading to 4 arrested. One organizer told The Guardian that people were expressing anger at political failures in the UK and the US and frustration that Trump was invited again while Palestinians are suffering from hunger. The visit wasn't just about pomp. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer hopes it will deepen economic ties, attract billions in investment and give him leverage on issues like Ukraine and Israel. Big tech CEOs were there too. Tim Cook from Apple, Demis Habbis from Google DeepMind, Sab Altam from OpenAI and Pascal Soriot from AstraZeneca. Companies like Microsoft, Nvidia, Google and OpenAI has pledged $42 billion in AI, quantum computing and civilian nuclear energy over the next few years. In total, the UK expects around $204 billion in US investment from this visit. The second day promises less ceremony and more politics. Donald Trump will head to Chequers, the Prime Minister's country residence, to discuss tricky topics from Russia's war in Ukraine to US trade policy before flying back to the US in the evening. Ukraine is preparing for a tough year ahead. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky says the country may have to spend $120 billion on the war in 2026 if Russia refuses to sign peace agreements.
The cost of this war is a real challenge for us right now. 1 year alone will cost $120 billion. $60 billion comes from the Ukrainian budget. And I need to find the other $60 billion for next year. In any case, Plan A is to end the war. Plan B is $120 billion. And that's a huge challenge. I'm not saying that in peacetime, meaning during a ceasefire or under security guarantees, we would need this much every year for 10 years. But in any case, you need to understand the scale of this issue.
On the top of that, Ukraine is set to receive Patriot and HIMARS systems through a supply mechanism approved by Donald Trump. The program, officially called the Priority Ukrainian Requirements List, pulls NATO member states except the US to fund American weapons, ammunition and equipment. By next month, Ukraine expects about $3.5 billion from the US fund to help maintain its defense against Russia's full-scale invasion. Zelensky didn't reveal exactly which weapons will arrive first, but he confirmed that they will include missiles for Patriot air defense systems and ammunition for HIMARS artillery rockets, crucial support for Ukrainian forces on the battlefield. Russia's economy on the edge and Ukraine keeps striking. Russia is facing a serious money crunch. The war in Ukraine is costing a fortune and the government is scrambling to over a growing budget gap. One idea: raise the sale tax from 20 to 22%. It could cut the projected deficit in half, but it wouldn't fix the bigger problem. As Reuters reports, one official said, cutting the budget is like shearing a piglet, lots of squealing, not much use. Meanwhile, Russia's economy is slowing fast. Growth is expected to drop from 4% last year to just 1% this year. Inflation is about 8% and nearly half of government revenues go to defense and security. Russia has a reserve fund about 4 trillion rubles, but it only covers part of the shortfall. Meanwhile, Ukraine keeps hitting Russia's economy right from the front lines. Friendly drones strike Gazprom's oil refinery in Salavat, Bashkortostan, taking out the primary crude oil processing unit. It's Russia's largest integrated petrochemical complex, producing petrol, diesel, and a bunch of other products. The plant sits 1,400 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. And that's not all. Ukrainian special forces also successfully hit the Volgograd oil refinery overnight on September 18. Locals reported at least 15 explosions, and a refinery reportedly stopped operations. This facility is key for supplying fuel to the Russian army, processing over 15 million tons of oil per year, which is more than 5% of Russia's total output. Meanwhile, the international community is stepping up pressure. Australia lowered the price cap on Russian oil from $60 to $47.6 per barrel. According to the Australian Foreign Ministry, this move will reduce the market value of Russian crude and help cut revenue from oil flowing into Russia's war economy. Australia also imposed sanctions on 95 ships belonging to Russia's so-called shadow fleet, tightening the squeeze on Moscow's energy exports. The big question: will Russia raise taxes to survive, or is deeper economic crisis coming? And how far can Ukraine go in putting pressure on Russia's economy? Slovakia and Hungary push back on Trump's energy pressure. Slovakia and Hungary are standing their ground against US pressure to cut Russian oil and gas imports, at least until the EU finds enough alternative supplies. Speaking to reporters on September 17 in Bratislava, Slovak Economy Minister Denisa Sakova said the country needs to set up the right conditions first.
Before we can fully commit, we need to have the right conditions in place. Otherwise, we risk seriously damaging our industry and economy.
She stressed that Slovakia must build sufficient infrastructure to support alternative energy routes. Sakova also made her position clear during talks in Vienna with US Energy Secretary Chris Wright earlier this week. She said the US representative understood Slovakia's concern and acknowledged that Washington needs to step up energy projects in Europe. Meanwhile, Gergely Gulyás, head of Hungary's Prime Minister office, made it clear that Hungary will reject any EU initiatives that threatens its energy security. He called EU sanctions against Russia ineffective and said Budapest will continue to block steps that endanger its energy supply. Both Slovakia and Hungary still rely on Russian oil, especially via Druzhba pipeline, which has recently been targeted by attacks from Ukraine. Slovak and Hungarian foreign ministers have complained to the European Commission about these incidents. Trump has previously said he's ready to push for tough sanctions on Russia, but only if all NATO countries cut their purchases of Russian oil. That's it for now. For the latest news, follow our new X account War and Politics 24. The link is in the video description.